Alright, hello everyone. This is the guided notes video for the first people of North Carolina. So hopefully you watched the first video because I did go over some vocabulary that we are going to see in this passage. As you can see, I've got my notebook paper. I would like you to take these notes in your social studies section of your notebook. And I also have a printed version of our article, which again, you have access to the article under classwork on your Google Classroom. You have access to this article so you can see it as well. To start off at the top, I'm going to write the title, the first people of North Carolina. Alright, so then when I look back at these notes, I'm going to know what these notes are about. So, what I want to start with is I'm going to start by reading the first paragraph. So, archaeologists believe that Paleo-Indians were the first people to live in North Carolina. Paleo comes from a Greek word meaning very old. These Native Americans came here around 10 to 12,000 years ago. They were believed to be big game hunters who traveled to North America at a time when sea levels dropped. This revealed a patch of dry land in the Bering Sea. This land bridge is also known as Bergia. These Native Americans were able to travel from Siberia to Alaska during the last ice age. When the ice age was over and temperatures warmed, they were trapped here by the rising sea levels. Evidence has traced the origin of the first Native Americans in North Carolina to these people. So, I don't want to rewrite this whole paragraph. I want to pull out the important facts. So, I'm going to put a bullet point on this first line, and an important fact that I read was that Paleo-Indians were the first people to live in North Carolina. So that's exactly what I'm going to write. And I'm going to abbreviate North Carolina to our state's abbreviation, which is NC. Alright? I'm also going to write down that paleo comes from a Greek word. Which means very old. Alright? So, and we know that they were believed to be big game hunters. So, they were big game hunters. Alright? And we also read that they came to America across a land bridge. Alright? So, now let's go on to our second paragraph. As Paleo-Indians were able to do many different things well, they were good at adapting to their surroundings. They were good hunters and used their skills to their advantage in this new land of opportunity. Paleo-Indians were nomadic, which remember that means they moved place to place, and that they traveled in order to follow their food source. Their typical tribe consisted of anywhere from 20 to 50 people. Woolly mammoths, camels, mastodons, saber-toothed tigers, and giant bison were plentiful in North Carolina eastern woodlands. These animals provided a food source needed for the Paleo-Indians. They used their meat, skins, bones, and tusks to help them survive. No part of the animal was wasted. Meat provided food for the tribe, skins were often used as clothing, and bones were used as tools and weapons. As skilled hunters, they used hand-thrown spears or spears thrown with an atto. An atto was a tool designed for throwing spears with more force and accuracy. These Native Americans are credited with the invention of spears with stone tips. They were also good at using spears for fishing and gathering shellfish in the coastal areas. Paleo Indians were excellent gatherers, often stopping to collect seeds, berries, fruits, and roots. It is also believed by many scientists that Paleo Indians brought tamed dogs to America with them. So, again, I'm going to put another dot for another fact, alright? And I'm going to, again, want to pull out the important stuff. So I think it's important that we know that they traveled in order to follow their food source. So they traveled to follow their food source. And then we also want to make note of what kind of food they ate. So they hunted woolly mammoths, camels, mastodons, saber-toothed tigers, and bison. Alright, and remember, they didn't waste any part of the animal, and so it's important to know that they developed a tool for throwing spears. So they developed misspelled that. For throwing spears with more force and accuracy. Alright? So, now we've done our first two paragraphs. Let's look at this third paragraph. As time passed, many of these Native Americans settled down. They decided to stay in one place longer than consistently moving and searching for food. In the past, they had traveled great distances in search of food and items to trade with other Native Americans in the area. Where once they had depended on caves for shelter, now they were building homes and villages. Their homes were simple shelters made from bush and animal skin. They often settled near glacial lakes. These lakes were left behind when the glaciers, or large bodies of ice, melted at the end of the Ice Age. Villages became trading hubs where food, tools, and other supplies were readily available. So what I want to write down from that paragraph is that they settled into villages near the glacial lakes, and these villages became a place for trading. Alright, so let's look at our next paragraph. Paleo Indians were hunters, fishermen, and gatherers. They still knew they needed more in order to stay rooted in one place. They began farming with seeds that they had gathered. This ensured that they had enough food stored to last through harsh winters. When no natural food sources were available, crops like maize, corn, squash, and beans would help them survive. Even with crops, they still relied heavily on hunting. This was more difficult than when they were traveling because animals became afraid of their presence. Paleo Indians often used deer skins to disguise themselves in order to get closer to animals they were hunting. In this way, they learned to rely less on herds of roaming animals for their survival. So, what's important from this paragraph is that once they were settled, they began farming with seeds they collected. They began farming with seeds they had collected, and they began to disguise themselves to be able to hunt. Alright, now let's look at our last paragraph. During the winter months, the Paleo Indians depended on the crops known as the Three Sisters. These crops were corn, beans, and squash. Most American tribes have their own legend about these crops. As the legend is told, these three crops will grow well when planted together. Sister corn provides a ladder for sister beans' vines. Sister squash shades the ground and holds the moisture in the soil. Each sister protects the other. By planting these crops together, the Paleo Indians were able to stop being nomadic tribes. They settled into an area which later promoted trade and a more stable way of life for their people. So, what's important from this last paragraph is our sister crops, or the three sisters. So, the three sister crops are, and then I'm going to write down what they are: corn, beans, and squash. And remember, these crops allowed the Indian tribes to not have to be nomadic. Alright? These crops allowed the Paleo Indians to settle down. Alright, make sure you've added these notes to your social studies section of your notebook, and then use these notes and your passage to complete the questions. Alright, have a great rest of your day.